Welcome, students. Have you ever looked at a forest or a pond and wondered how everything in it just works together? Why certain plants grow in some places and not others? Well, today we're diving into Unit 5 Ecology. This is the science that explains all those amazing connections between every living thing and the world around them. Here's our game plan for today. We're going to break it all down into 6 simple sections. We'll start with the absolute basics, then look at how nature is organized, and finally, we'll explore all the different environmental factors that shape life as we know it. Okay, let's jump right into Section 1. We have to start with the most important question of all. What exactly is ecology? Well, the word itself actually gives us a massive clue. It comes from 2 old Greek words, oikos, which means house, and logos, which means to study. So when you put them together, ecology is literally the study of our house, our home, which is planet Earth, and all the incredible interactions happening within it. Now, to really understand ecology, you need to get these 4 big ideas, or basic concepts. According to the ecologist R. Misra, these are the pillars of ecology. Let's break down what holism, ecosystem, succession, and conservation really mean. First up is holism. The main idea here is that you can't understand something big just by looking at its tiny pieces separately. Think about a car. You could study a tire or a seat or the engine all day long, but you'll never understand how a car drives until you see how all those parts work together. That's holism. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Next, we have a word you're going to hear a lot, ecosystem. This is a super important term. An ecosystem is any place, it could be a huge forest or a tiny puddle, where the living things, which we call biotic components, and the non-living things, like sunlight, water, and soil, which we call abiotic components, all interact with each other to form a complete system. And our third big concept is succession. Nature is never standing still. It's always changing. Imagine a piece of bare land after a fire. First, small grasses and weeds will grow. Then, after a few years, maybe some shrubs. And after many, many years, you might have a whole forest. That whole long, slow process of change is what we call succession. All right, so we've got the basic concepts down. Now let's look at how ecologists organize the living world. It's kind of like a ladder, scaling up from the smallest living unit to the biggest thing of all, the entire planet. So the very first step on that ladder is the species. This is just a group of organisms that are very similar and can interbreed to produce healthy, fertile babies. So all humans are one species, all tigers are another species. Simple enough, right? Now, if you take a group of individuals from the same species that are all living together in the same area, you've got a population. So we're not talking about all the tigers in the world, but just the population of tigers living in, say, the Sundarbans forest. Okay, so what happens when you look at that Sundarbans forest again? You don't just have tigers, right? You have populations of deer, monkeys, different types of trees, insects, and so on. When you take all those different populations of different species that live and interact in the same area, you have what's called a community. And this pyramid shows you the whole picture, all the levels of organization. You see how it starts with a very small stuff like genes and cells and builds up to the organism, the population, the community, the ecosystem, all the way up to the biosphere, which is the part of Earth where all life exists. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is interesting, but why does it matter to me? Well, this is where it gets really important. We can take all this knowledge and actually use it to solve real-world problems. That's what we call applied ecology. Applied ecology is where the science meets real life. It's how we figure out the best ways to protect endangered species, or how to restore forest that's been cut down. It helps us manage our resources like water and forests sustainably, and even helps us design cities that are more environmentally friendly. Okay, let's switch gears a little. We're now going to look at those non-living or abiotic factors that have a massive influence on every living thing. And we're going to start with the biggest one of all, climate. For plants, light is everything, but not all plants like the same amount of it. Some plants, called heliophytes, are total sun lovers. They need lots of direct sunlight to grow. But then you have others, called psiophytes, that actually prefer the shade and grow best in low-light conditions, like on a forest floor. Temperature also has a huge say in how animals are built. Scientists have noticed some really interesting patterns, which they've even named as rules. For example, Bergmann's rule says that animals in cold places tend to be bigger than their relatives in warm places. And Allen's rule notes that animals in the cold often have shorter limbs and ears to help them save body heat. Think of the tiny ears on an Arctic fox compared to a desert fox. All right, let's dig a little deeper now. Literally, it's time to talk about the ground itself. The land and the soil are incredibly important environmental factors that determine what can live in a certain place. So if you were to cut a slice of the earth like it was a cake, you'd see it has different layers. We call these layers horizons. That top layer, the A horizon, is usually dark and full of rich organic material. That's the most important layer for plants, where they get most of their nutrients. Now, what the soil actually feels like, whether it's sandy or sticky or smooth, all comes down to the size of the little mineral particles in it. This table shows you the different sizes, from big, coarse gravel all the way down to tiny microscopic clay particles. The mix of these particles determines how well the soil holds water and air, which is obviously super important for plants. And let's talk about humus. No, not the food. In soil science, humus is the dark, spongy organic stuff made from dead leaves and other decaying material. It's like a vitamin shot for the soil. There are two main types. Mull humus is the good stuff. It's rich in minerals and breaks down fast, making soil really fertile. More humus, on the other hand, is less fertile and decomposes very slowly. Okay, for our final section, we come to the living factors themselves, the biotic factors. This is all about how living things affect each other. Think about a predator hunting its prey, or two trees competing for sunlight. But it's not all negative. Think about a bee pollinating a flower. That's a positive interaction. All these relationships between organisms are the threads that weave the entire ecosystem together. All right, let's do a quick recap of everything we've covered today. The big takeaway is that ecology is the science of connections and interactions. We learned the four core concepts: holism, ecosystem, succession, and conservation. We saw how life is organized into levels, from species all the way up to the biosphere. And we saw how everything is influenced by both non-living factors, like climate and soil, and living factors, which are all the interactions between organisms. So I want to leave you with one final thought. Now that you understand these basic principles of how our planet functions, the big question is, how can we and how can you use this knowledge to make better decisions and help create a healthier, more sustainable future for everyone? For more clear explanations and daily IGNOU videos, subscribe to IGNOU Mind Decoded.